Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of the Team Lead Talks podcast. I'm your host out of Alexandria, Virginia, Andrew Becker. On today's episode, we have Rafael Cortez. He is the founder of CEO Pulse, a new friend of mine. We just got to catch up earlier. He has tons of amazing experience that he's going to share with us today. But welcome to the show, Rafael. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Andrew. Thank you so much for inviting me, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm glad we got
Pleasure.
to connect. So, Rafael, for those listening right now that might not know who you are just yet, give us a 80,000 foot overview of who you are. I know you have a really cool background that we'll get into in a little bit, but give us the high level.
Yeah, so I play in the real estate wholesaling space. I'm a mentor, so I coach a lot of students in the real estate wholesaling space. I also built the software in that background, as far as systems and processes. So it's systems process. I'm known as a systems guy, really, and it's a little tricky to just kind of explain it because my background is organizational psychology.
Okay.
So I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I've been wholesaling and doing real estate investments since 2009. Before then, I used to have a transportation business. Before then, I used to be a firefighter. So I just kind of been in a couple of different realms when it comes to the professional endeavor side.
Right. Yeah, you've got a plethora of experience in many different things there. And thanks for your service as a firefighter, man, as a first responder.
Thank
That's
you.
where you got your start. But let's hear from you. Like, how did you transition from first responder to medical transport and then into real estate? Like, that's quite the leap from one, niche to another.
I became a firefighter when I was 19, so I was super young, right? Like at that point, you're either you either don't care or you're
Yeah.
a sponge. It's one of the two.
Right.
And I happened to be a sponge. I was just paying attention to anything that was working because I didn't really have another route before, besides the fire department. So I got to be indirectly mentored by some of the captains and the people that were older than me, and they were invested in stocks and then starting their own side gigs and stuff like that. So I just paid attention in that realm. One night we were having a conversation at Applebee's, and I'm a fly on the wall on this. And one of the guys starts talking about opportunities in business. He goes, a funeral home is a great idea, and because we're all gonna die, so it's a little dark, but it made sense. And then the other one is like non-emergency medical transports. We had this problem that you would take an emergency vehicle out of service and then do a run that would last 3 or 4 hours. We're off the clock, we're off duty on an emergency vehicle because somebody needed dialysis, and you don't need an emergency vehicle for that type of stuff. We just didn't have the support or the companies that were doing that enough. The ones that were doing it, they were always booked and stuff like that. So
Okay.
anyways, there was a gap there. Lean into it, and fast forward, I roll out the company. I moved to Phoenix, landed a few big state contracts, and started building that up as a solopreneur. So I was the dispatcher, the mechanic, the handyman, and my friend now owns multiple funeral homes in Yuma. So out of that conversation, there was a lot of cool things that happened. So in the interim, so I do that for a while. I realized it's like I'm chasing the dollar. I wanted to do something else. So I worked construction throughout high school and college, and I knew how to swing a hammer, right? So I was like, I'm going to flip a house. I'm going to put some of the money that I made on this business, flip a house, and I got into that, and did a couple of flips. I think it was like the third or fourth flip that I was doing that I looked at. I actually looked at the settlement statement. I didn't know much about real estate, and look at the settlement statement, and I see an assignment fee on there for $18,000. And I called the guy,
You're like, what the
like,
hell is that?
yeah, bro, what's this assignment fee? I was like, well, that's what you were paying me for the property. He's like, fuck, I paid you $18,000 for the property. Yeah, for the contract. And he thought I was upset. I was like, oh, like, yeah, bro, you paid me 14 for the last one because I bought a couple from him. And I was like,
But
all
you didn't
right,
even know you're doing this.
great. No, it's I don't know. Nobody told me to look at the settlement statement. I was like, all right,
Okay.
cool. That's the exit price. That I'll pay that. And then so it's like he thought I was mad, and I wasn't. I was like, more power to you, brother. Like, how do I do that?
Teach me.
Yes. So he pointed me in the direction of a podcast. And so I listened to the podcast, and on that podcast, you just kind of start opening up roads, right? I closed a couple of deals just listening to the content on that podcast. I found Sean Terry. Sean Terry has an incredible podcast out there, and Flip to Freedom. He's one of the OGs in the space. And so anyway, I started listening to the stuff that he was talking about. I closed a couple of deals. I couldn't, like, this is wholesaling. Like, wow, this is amazing. This is great. I don't have to swing a hammer. I don't have to, worry about fixing toilets or anything like that. I was like, cool. I'll flip paper instead of houses all day long. So I got into it. I sold the transportation business. At that time, I went all into this space. Started working on my real estate license and getting better at the craft. One day, Sean throws out this, on the email, because I was on his mailer, but he sends out, he's looking for an acquisitions guy. He's like, I'm gonna call in and apply. At this point, I've been my own boss for the last 10 years at this point. But if I'm gonna go work anywhere for somebody, like, it's got to be somewhere where I get tested. You know what I mean? And I mean, I think it was a great decision. I went there, got hired on the spot by him, became his acquisitions guy for just under 3 years, closed 1.2, 1.4 the next year. And as far as assignment spreads, right? So I started doing really good on the acquisition side, and then I branched out and did my own thing on the wholesale side. So
Very well.
that's how I just kind of went from one to the next in transition. And during that time, I went back to university. I got my degrees in psychology, launched my practice in organizational psychology, and became a broker. And I mean, just pushing forward throughout the entire time.
Yeah, that's a really awesome background, man. Such great like story of where you started from a firefighter all the way to where you are today. And we were talking kind of before the show. We have a lot of overlap, but you're not just like flipping, you're also doing coaching. You have software that you have in
Yeah,
your community. Let's talk about that a little bit because a lot, how the world in the United States is right now. Like a lot of people are struggling, trying to figure out where to
yeah,
go. And one of the biggest things that I loved, that I found out the hard way, Rafael, was coaches. So we did our own thing for a year, 2 years, and thought we could, we had these egos, just getting into the business and thought we could do it on our own. But then we hired a coach and it like completely transformed our life because we were
yeah.
just like, dude, Rafael's been doing this since 2009. Why don't we just go learn from him? So I love the concept of the coaching program. And you were just showing me you have a wholesaling 101, kind of teaching the ropes of wholesaling, and then novations. Let's talk about that for a little bit because everyone's always looking to expand and grow their business without having to struggle the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're either gonna pay the money in dump tax or cutting the learning curve somehow. I mesee, that's my take on stuff. If I'm tackling something new, I don't even mess around with it too much at the beginning. It's like I'll kind of test the waters to see if it's something that catches my attention. If it does, I'll go to somebody who knows, and then cut through the front of the line that way. So yeah, it's been great, just being able to open up and stand on somebody else's shoulders that they've already done the journey. So yeah, my the mentorship and what I do now, I have group coaching, which is for real estate wholesaling, nationwide wholesaling. So anywhere you're doing it, you can do it from anywhere. You can do it in any market. This
Hmm.
is from finding sellers, negotiating the deals, running the contracts, and doing the walkthroughs, and even if you don't have a team, right? The framework that I roll out allows you to do it from anywhere.
Right.
And I have group coaching, and then I have one-on-one mentorship. One-on-one mentorship is more advanced. I mean, that's where we have people that are doing steady 5+ deals a month. And so the conversations are a little different on that one. We lean more into biz ops. We lean more into hiring, into development, into the entrepreneur side as opposed to the hustle side. There's a transition in mindset that happens when you get into real estate. For example, wholesaling, right? There's a low barrier to entry. Somebody wants to make money, they are hungry, they're gonna do well in wholesaling. Wholesaling is not rocket science, and as long as you know how to approach it the right way. And what happens is, like, we come in, or what I see, and this was me all day long, come in with the hustle mentality, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go through this, and you chase the money and do this and that, and then boom, get it, get a couple of checks in. As that goes on, it's not sustainable, right? So as that goes on, you have to transition your thinking into, how do I empower my team, right?
Yeah.
How do I grow with the team? What is my highest and best, and how do I refocus on that type of stuff? How do I let go of, like, the things that I feel like I need to control, but in reality I don't, because I have a team that I can empower. So there's a lot of, like, little levers and I feel like triggers us that start to kick in as we evolve, as entrepreneurs, and that's a 101
Yeah, man.
portion of that.
I knew we were going to get along really well, Rafael, when you told me you're about like systems and processes, because I didn't share this with you before, but before I got into real estate, I worked nuclear weapons issues for the United States Air Force at the Pentagon for 7 years. So it was
Wow.
all systems and checklists and
Yeah.
processes. And I'm OCD by nature, so it like fit in quite well. And then I took from what I learned there into the business. But I call that I was telling you about the probate engineers coaching program I had. I call it switching your mindset from like operator to owner, where you're
Mm.
truly
Yeah.
leveraging out to not have to do the low hanging fruit stuff first,
Yeah.
and focusing on that high, revenue generating stuff versus like
Yeah.
pull probates or go into input something into the CRM that you have. So you have this program kind of like a ladder, right? Where you can come into your world, Rafael, and say, hey, I don't really quite understand wholesaling, but I want to get into it. And you have that. And then you have a little bit more advanced. That's your one-on-one mentorship that you offer.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. And then you have
Both
another
realms.
really cool thing about novations. Does that kind of fall into that same community, or is that different?
No, it's all the same thing. So what I do is I mean, I don't know. I feel like when you're inside a mentorship, especially in real estate, man, we're not, as much as we want to turn it into a conveyor belt, every real estate transaction is going to be different, right? So it's not, we're not making widgets. So you have to there's soft skills that are involved. When you have soft skills, you have to roll in different avenues of information in. So anything that I do in my business, we usually just roll it into the training, and we break it down, do case studies, and talk about that type of stuff. And we close through creative financing. We close sub two. We do novations, of course. I mean, we do options. We do everything. Of course, our entry point is always going to be wholesaling. We go for the wholesale deal. That's. But once we're there, I mean, you can figure out is like, all right, if this doesn't work as a wholesale deal, how can I monetize this lead?
Yeah.
Is it an option? Is it innovation? Is it a creative financing? Can we restructure the deal to do something else? A worst case scenario, I'm a real estate broker and we end up listing the property or something like that.
I love that.
So yeah, so you have very, you have many exits and to whatever the lead issue, the lead problem is. So if there's a true problem, more than likely you're going to be able to increase your close ratio because you have, multiple
All these
tools at
different
the belt.
options. Yeah, there's an
Yeah.
opportunity cost not
Yeah.
having that in your plate, right? On your
Yeah.
plate of like options for
Yeah.
people. I love the fact I reference them as like in my course, like the hybrid model where like,
Yeah.
yeah, wholesaling kind of everything comes in that way, but maybe it doesn't make sense and they want to get the most value. So you can renovate and list it on the back end. How
Yeah.
important is it to keep that internal versus like third partying, referring it out?
Yeah, well, I mean, you already have a lot of times, right? If you're good at what you're doing on the front end, you're going to build rapport, right? And you can build the greatest rapport. People are going to trust you. They're going to call you for stuff that
Yeah.
they're having issues with somebody else that they hired. And it's like, hey, what do you think about this? When people start asking you for your perspective, your opinion, when you're not even part of the picture, it means that you have really good rapport with them. We just
Right.
didn't have the
And
right
trust
tool.
value. Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't have the right tool to fix their issue, right? And so we started, rolling stuff out throughout the years. It's like, all right, cool, let's learn about this, let's tweak this. Innovations have been around for a long, long time. I mean, we were doing innovations back in 2016, 17. They just kind of got popularized, in the later years. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to skin the cat in real estate. It's you just have to understand the overall processes, and it's not a one lane thing. You always have a mix of situations that you can come in and support if you have a couple of different tools in the belt. Now, one of the things that I do push is when somebody's getting into it, hey, focus on the simple stuff, focus on the wholesale offer, focus on running comps, focus on, so it's like going to the gym, right? If it's the first time you ever show up to the gym, you're not going to be as strong as the body
Yeah.
lifter that's next to you. Like, you have to build your way up to that level, and it's the same thing in business. So go in, start with one strategy, get a good understanding of that, and then evolve into the next one,
Yeah,
so
the
so
advanced
it's
strategies, innovations, creative financing. Do that
right.
after. If anyone's listening out there, they want to get into wholesaling, figure out the wholesale foundation stuff,
Yeah. and
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 then
we
start to branch out.
Right. And we don't, like, it doesn't mean to lose the opportunity if it's there, right? But like, don't try to run it yourself. Like, there's people that know, understand it, collaborate, right? So we team up. I mean, there's a lot of people within the community that are doing different strategies and stuff like that. So it's like, hey, partner up with that person, see if they can, help you out with that and do the split,
Yeah,
right?
almost
Learn
like a
along. Yeah.
one-off coaching of
Yeah.
mentorship.
Learning along the way. And then we come back and dissect everything on the calls and stuff. So.
Very
So
cool,
yeah,
man.
it's a pretty interesting model, and then of course all that's backed into backed up by the software, and it kind of creates an ecosystem there. So
Yeah, that kind of like
it's
brings
very
everything all
solid.
together for organizational purposes.
Yeah. Yep.
Very
Yep. Yep.
cool. Well, Rafael, this has been awesome, man. If anyone listening, especially like maybe agents listening out there that are like, man, I do sometimes get dilapidated properties that potentially could go the wholesale route, but they don't
Yeah.
have that business revenue line yet, and they want to start to think about it. Reach out to Rafael, but how does someone get connected with you?
I'm very active on social media, so you can find me at Rafael Cortez CEO on Instagram. Message me, and we'll respond right back. The sites where you can find out more about us is reiwholesaling.com if you're looking at the mentorship, or the software is the REI Pulse CRM.
Very cool. And for those wanting to reach out to Rafael, we'll also include the contact information in the description of this episode as well. Rafael, before we leave, what is one resource, book, PDF, checklist, anything that you might be able to share with listeners today that can better their life, their community, or their business? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I lost you there for a second.
Sorry. Okay, let me repeat that. I was like, what's he doing? Before we leave, Rafael, what is one thing you can share, whether it's a book, a resource, a checklist, a website that anyone listening right now can use to better their life, their community, or their business?
I mean, top reads if you're looking at books. I mean, there's it's a loaded question. There's so much stuff out there, but if I were to go in one direction, I'd probably give you my top two books. They're not necessarily business books, but they're very much on the mindset side, and I mean, they just help you see a different perspective of the world, period, right, and yourself. A lot of it comes down to to self awareness, and I feel one of them specifically just opens that up and gives you a lot of fuel for it. So one of them would be Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, co-authored by Sharon Lecter. And then the other one is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz.
Psycho-Cybernetics?
Psycho-Cybernetics,
What
yeah.
is that about? I'm gonna go to Amazon and get that. I have the first one, but not that second one. Can you tell us a little bit about what that
Yeah. So
is?
Psycho-Cybernetics, that book is really it paints a really good picture, an approachable picture as to how to understand the self. Like, how do you see yourself, right? And for example, like whenever, I mean, I feel like 100% of the mentors that go out there, we start coaching, we start doing stuff. If you don't get the imposter syndrome, if you don't feel like, oh man, what am I doing? Like, am I even capable of doing this type of stuff? I feel
Yeah,
like you may not be caring enough, right? But it'll help you switch certain levels that sometimes there are self-imposed limitations based on the way that you see yourself, learned behaviors, borrowed behaviors, classical conditioning from the past, and just reshaping all that stuff.
interesting.
And it does it in a very interesting way. The author, Maxwell Maltz, he was actually a surgeon. He wasn't even a psychologist, but he studied people throughout the years through cosmetic surgery, and people would go to him to fix part of the body to feel better. And 6 months they'd be back because now they got to fix somewhere else or something else. And like, this is not working. There's something deeper to that psyche. So he goes into all of that stuff, breaks it down, and helps you, I feel like, see yourself in a very powerful light.
Very
So
cool.
I mean, that's huge, especially when you're leading, man. When you have a team behind you, we are the tip of that business. We are the thing that stops the buck. So a lot of that, a lot of the time is just self help.
Yeah, definitely need that. I thanks to the good people at Amazon. I'll have it in a couple days, and I'll start reading that one. I love
Perfect,
any new book I can get. My wife hates it because every like day I get like 3 or 4 books delivered from people
bro.
recommending them on this.
Yeah, that's my shelf in the back. So
Nice, very
my
cool. Yeah, you
curated
can see
list.
mine behind me. I'm trying to fill in as much as I can there.
Yeah.
Rafael, man, this has been so awesome to have you. It's really great connecting. I know we got a lot to talk about after this, but thanks so much for being on the show, dude.
Thank you for the invite, man.
All right,
Pleasure.
man.